Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Elements of Success. Just taking a moment to land here. I'm so grateful to have this moment of routine right now because my life is a little topsy turvy. So I'm just so glad to anchor in with you and to talk about what we're here to talk about today, which is so important for all of us, the wisdoms of cycle and flow. We are kicking off our water arc today. Super exciting. Water is one of my favorite elements. And the idea of cycles and flow is just something that is so important and yet completely missed in our modern society because of hustle culture and grind and all of that. So, hi, Lisa. Good to see you. Let's dive in. But just in case you don't know me, I am Safriana Luna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I'm a licensed trauma therapist turned transformational mentor, speaker, author, and CEO. And I love to teach. That's my background. I was a public school teacher before I was all of those other things I just listed. And so I love having this opportunity to share some of the things I've learned along the way. So, first, just checking back in with yourself. Our last topic and arc was all about fire and our willpower and what fuels us, and the fact that we need to stay fueled in order to do what's ours to do in the world. And fire can burn out, right? We can be so depleted. And so the invitation was to create some sort of fire restoration kit to touch base with what ignites you or reignites you. So your self care practices, what's restful for you, what inspires you, what leads you to be able to focus, all of those things. And we talked a lot about passive and active rest and kind of differentiating that in our bodies, that we can feel restful while doing things. And sometimes we also need to do nothing and simply be to get that passive rest. We need both kinds. So, did you notice that, or how did that feel for you? And then, did you touch base with the bold framework at any choice points along the way? So, that is breathing, observing, listening to our values, and then deciding when we come to a choice point where we could move towards or away from our values. So that's our little recap from the fire arc as we move into the water arc. I love that, Lisa, that you're a Pisces. Some of my favorite people are Pisces. So, first of all, I just love this little capybara graphic here because it makes me smile. I love capybaras and how they love the water. So that is a great animal guide to work with to dive into some water energy. But water is the element of cycles and seasons. It's the element of flow and adaptability. It is this just fluid, ever moving energy, right? That can expand to fill any crack. And it is our emotions, it's our intuitions. It's also cleansing and renewal. It's just such a nourishing and nurturing element. And in the seasons framework, water represents how we move through cycles of our lives, how we follow the natural ebbs and flows of life, and the seasons of expansion and contraction, because we have seasons of expansion and contraction. So, as we orient to this new arc, I invite you to think about your own relationship with water, what it means to you. And just as I'm sipping my water over here, reminding you that you can charge your water at any point in time. If you uh, if you want, you can put positive emotions in it. If you want, you can put positive energy into it, whatever feels right to you, emotions, energy, both. And you can just energetically or empathically stir and charge your water with your positive intentions. And that is the most simple water ritual that you can do every day to deepen your relationship. So, we have a responsibility to water. And water is life, right? Our bodies are made up of such a large percentage of water. And we get dehydrated so easily. I've been struggling some with dehydration recently, which is why I'm going to probably be drinking a lot as I talk about water this episode, because it is essential. It is one of the most essential building blocks for our life. And fresh water is only 3% of Earth's water. So as we, see our waterways polluted and under attack, we see them privatized to be commodified and, money made off of it, and climate change continues to threaten our access to water. We've got a lot to do. We have very important work to do. And it's so sad, truly heartbreaking that many communities lack safe drinking water to this day when corporations are profiting off of perfectly clean water sources in the meantime. And this is, there's indigenous water protectors who fight to protect the sacred waters of the lands that they keep. And this is just, it's like such a serious issue that I feel like doesn't get enough attention. I mean, even here in the United States right now, there are so many communities that do not have access to clean water. And again, it is an essential building block of life. So I feel like the whole human species has some responsibility to look at this issue and see what can be done about it and how do we preserve this very precious and limited resource. The water element and, adaptability is really about embracing the actual nature of water. And so I had mentioned earlier, water takes shape of whatever container holds it. So I could take my pretty little moon glass here and pour it into a teacup, and the water is going to seemingly change shape because it just expands to take up whatever room its volume needs to take up in whatever tight little space or open space that it has access to. It flows around obstacles rather than forcing through them. The water does not force its way through the glass, it simply flows to the edges. And that is, could we look at our own lives as flowing to the edges instead of needing to force ourselves into tiny little boxes or lines? Water can be still as a pond and very peaceful and serene, and it can also be incredibly powerful as an ocean wave. And that is part of all of these elements have their spectrums, right? So it can be gently cleansing or it can be greatly purging. Emotions, as they're related to water, can be very at ease or very high charged. And the other thing about water that we want to relate to is that it moves in cycles because we have things like evaporation from the rain and the rivers and then the oceans and the repeating. And that is exactly what we do in our life too, is we fall apart, we evaporate, right? And then we condense, we come back to ourselves, and we move through a process, and then something happens again and we fall apart. There's so many cycles in our life: death, life, rebirth, right? And there is just an invitation for us to consider how we flow like water, how we flow like water with the cycles, how we can be like water that is high charged or completely at ease, how we can flow through obstacles rather than forcing around them. Like, how do you embody water? There's a real invitation here to play with this element. I feel like it's a little easier, a little more accessible in some ways too than sometimes some of the other elements. But when we flow like water, adapting, moving, trusting cycles, we find ease even in challenging times. Right now, I'm going through an immensely challenging time getting my house on the market, and I'm leaning really into this right now. Like, I'm going to adapt, I'm going to move, and I'm going to trust this will come to an end. The cycle will end and something new will begin. I trust that. I know that. And so, even through the challenges, I can find some adaptability and flexibility to flow with what's coming at me. And that's like when we have these lessons from the elements, it can really help with this big life stuff. That's why I teach this. The grounding in the elements, the magic of nature. So many metaphors for life and so many lessons for how to handle things. Glad you're enjoying this, Lisa. So, the cycles of life. Life moves in cycles, not straight lines. The only thing we perceive in a straight line really is time in a linear fashion. But when we think of our own lived experiences, it is not a straight line because we're constantly thinking about our past and our future and our present, right? So our real cycles are things like action and rest. So you ideally sleep every day, right? You get up in the morning just like the sun rises and sets. We do too. We get up, we go about our day, we live our life, we go to sleep. And so that is a cycle of action and rest. We also do that in micro ways throughout the day, right? Cycles of taking a break, breathing, focusing back in on what we want to do, and then being in action and doing the thing. There's inspiration and there's integration. There's gathering information and being inspired and changing through the things that we're learning and taking in. And then there's actually being integrated, and we've learned the lesson, we have integrated the skill, we are embodying it in our life now. So it's like there's the gathering stage, and then there's the integrating and making it part of who we are now stage. And that's a part of a cycle. We're constantly learning new things and being inspired by new things. Glad this is landing, Holly. And the cycles of expansion and contraction. There are times where like life feels so incredible. The energy is just expanding. We're feeling larger than life. Like everything is working out. And then there's the, oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm tense. I'm uncertain. There's chaos, right? And so when we can learn that this is a cycle, that we come in and out of them, things do become a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but they become more comfortable to face because we realize there's not as much uncertainty as we thought, because we recognize the cycle. We recognize that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. We recognize that even though right here, right now, we might be feeling this stress, that at some point in the rest of the cycle, we won't be feeling this stress. So if we can remember things are cycling or spiraling, at the beginning of Elements of Success, we talked a lot about the upward spiral. This is kind of the same thing, but think of it as, little closed loops in the spiral, the cycle ever continuing as we integrate, as we expand and contract, as we find new learning that inspires us. These are all of our different kinds of cycles. And nature's rhythms are so essential. This is like, I'm really coming to the core of this is what I want to help people remember and learn. Nature's rhythms remind us of the truth our bodies already know. Your body already knows this. You have this wisdom online. Trees do not produce fruit year round, they have seasons of rest. It's so cool to look at the trees because they teach us this lesson in real time as each tree navigates dormancy and coming out of dormancy, waking back up, greening, blooming, producing fruit, going back towards dormancy and shedding leaves, and then resting. Like we can look and see it's not the same outside the window when you look at the trees year round. So why are we expected to be the same year round? In fact, we are not the same year round. When you really tune into how your body responds to nature, you start to notice, I'm really driven by a different impulse at this time of year. Animals hibernate, they migrate, they adapt to seasonal changes. We tend to be more stagnant in our locations than probably a lot of animals these days, unless we're traveling. But we can still adapt to the seasonal changes. And in fact, I think that that's a huge missing part in so many of our lives as we try to run our lives the same through all 4 seasons. Or if you're in Maryland, like I am, like all 12 seasons. But, when we try to run our lives like there's just one season and that season is summer, capitalism wants it to be summer all the time where the fruit are producing and there's harvest all the time and things are in the height of abundance. But that's not how our systems work. And then we have our moon. The moon is, I just love the moon. I could talk about the moon for hours because it's such a symbol for us and our human lives as well, just like the sun is. The sun, the moon, and the earth, those 3 are like the cornerstones of druidry and understanding our nature as human beings, because the moon goes through phases. So do you, right? We all go through phases and changes. And when we look to the moon and we actually pay attention to how we are responding to the moon, so much happens. We go, oh, wow, there's sure a pattern here. Like when I started really doing lunar work and paying attention to what's actually happening in the sky and bothering to look at what's happening in nature because I felt that call, I suddenly started to realize, wow, I really like my sleep schedule issues. I can almost always isolate to particular moon phases. And so I learned my body might need a little extra support or integration before bedtime, especially near full moons. So the more we pay attention to the cycles of nature, the more we notice our own cycles in nature. And it's so cool. And then, of course, we talked about how water in particular moves through these cycles and transformation because it has so many different forms that it can take: gas, liquid, solid, right? It transforms and changes and flows just like we do. So the cycle of the seasons, why this is so important, and I mean, again, I could probably talk about just today's episode for like 3 hours. Indigenous seasonal teachings recognize the gifts of each season and humanity's roles as caretakers throughout those seasons. And indigenous cultures around the world are the ancient ways, right? We see them as the ancient ways. And I love the idea of our ancient future, which is a card in one of my oracle decks, being this message that we need to return to our ancient ways, which are still held by so many of our indigenous populations today, as well as people like myself, druids and witches and earth spiritualists and homesteaders and all kinds of people who are realizing, oh, wow, each season provides its own wisdom and medicine, and we can have a relationship with that. I practice the Celtic Wheel of the Year, which is the 8 seasonal festivals and marks those transition points, which, when you really tune into, is really, really special. Like you really start to notice the transitions. You notice how often nature seems to be going through some form of transformation. And then, of course, lunar traditions and rituals and ceremonies have existed long, long, long before we did, because there is so much influence of the moon on humanity and on Earth, and so the influence not only on tides but emotions and rhythms is felt. This is like these are the building blocks of what we are made of, the rhythms we are made of. And so, just as a brief overview of the seasons, we're going to dive deeper into them over the coming episodes for the water arc. But winter is supposed to be a season of rest for introspection and going inward. The trees and the fruits and all of that go dormant in winter. We too are meant to rest. So many animals provide wisdom about hibernation. I do an event, and I didn't do it this year, but I might do it next year. Um, I do an event called the Bear Immersion, where we literally plan that descent into that hibernation medicine at the beginning of winter. Spring is new energy, it's new beginnings, it's planting seeds, it's seeing things start to bloom. Those little buds, it's such a beautiful and exciting time, but it's still that transition between dormancy into action, rising action. Summer is the full expansion, collaboration, full expression, high heat, high energy. And, when you look outside, everything seems to be green and blooming and lush and gorgeous. And then autumn invites us into harvest preparation and really preparing ourselves to slow down. And that's that ramp that we need to build back up as humanity, is to invite ourselves to have some times to slow down and build those ramps, prepare ourselves to have a break, because it can feel really hard to have a break in our modern, constantly high paced hustle culture. So it also prepares us to release. So those are, our basic 4 seasons, and each of them you can see is like an important step. Well, I rest, then I plan, then I grow it, then I harvest it, right? Like we need all four of those things. We can't be in harvest 24/7. Yet, our capitalistic culture expects the same productivity year round, and this disconnect creates exhaustion and burnout. I would argue that I mean, I bet I could make a compelling argument that all of our burnout is related to a loss of connection to these natural rhythms and seasons. Yeah, I'm sure I could write a dissertation on that. Like our bodies know when it's time to slow down or speed up, but capitalism has really pushed that there's just one speed and we need to go all the time. So there is nothing wrong with you if you experience burnout. You are a human, you are an animal, and you are connected to earth cycles. You are a part of the earth cycles. And so we really we could all withstand some more compassion around how hard it is to continue to go at the pace that is expected when we are a part of this current system. But we can do better, and that's why we're here. So, when you're in flow, let's talk about this now. When you're in flow, everything feels like there's a little more ease, even if you have to make effort, right? I can't help but think about the moving process since that's all that I can think about is this house. There were such moments of flow when we had community coming together to work on cleaning and preparing the house and moving Ike out and just doing all of the tasks, right? Even though there was immense effort, we were all sweaty, we were all grunting, we were all, doing what had to be done. And it was immense physical labor and it's been immense emotional labor, but there was ease in it too because there was still a sense of flow. And time can become elastic when we're in flow. Really, like hours feel like minutes or minutes feel like hours. And sometimes it goes in both directions, but time just feels stretchy and unknown or unknowable even in some ways because we are lost in the awe, the beauty of the flow, whatever it has to do with. And our actions arise naturally. They arise from natural, easeful impulses, I want to call them, rather than like, tension, gripping, gotta do, which is force, right? When there's this must do, should do, have to, that is where force starts to end up layering in. And the other cool thing about flow is that often the energy sustains or increases as you work. So I find, for example, when I'm in my writing flow, I know when I'm done. The energy is there, it's sustained, and then the flow ends and I'm done. But I can maintain writing when I'm in flow for hours on end, and just be so sustained or even that sense of increasing. So, what really lights you up and what gets you in flow, you'll experience that, play with that. Like, does the energy maintain or does it actually increase? And then maybe eventually it has a drop off because, of course, our energy can't maintain for forever. I can write for 10 hours, but I can't write for 24, right? Like, there is an end to what we can do. And then the last thing we really look for flow is the sense of rightness in your body. It's good to have done. You are in the enjoyment of having been doing it, and like you feel like it's right in some capacity. This might come through like a lightness in your chest. It could be a tingle in your skin. It could be a sacral response, like a It could be any number of things. Your signals for what's right in your body are going to be unique to you, but this is where you get to get curious and play and notice and pay attention to what flow looks like for you. Now, when we're forcing, it feels like constant resistance and struggle. And I'll use the example here with more house stuff. I've had to make a lot of phone calls that I really don't want to have to make and do a lot of paperwork that I really don't want to have to do. And there's been a little bit of forcing because it feels like there's a lot of resistance and struggle in it. So, in recognizing that, feeling that gripping resistance in my body, that tells me there's an impulse to force something. I feel like I have to get to a result and get something done. So that's just a signal, right? Oh, I might be forcing things. I probably need to take a step back and take a big deep breath and center myself before I take action again so that I'm not in this gripping energy of resistance. Forcing can feel like time dragging. Minutes feel like hours, right? It's not that sense of flow where time feels wobbly. It literally feels like it's going on for forever. You don't want to be doing it. You can't wait for it to be over. that is forcing energy. Having to push yourself to keep going, if you are burning the candle at both ends is one saying, right? Burning the midnight fuel, borrowing against your forks, if you know spoon theory. If you're pushing yourself and you're pushing yourself and you're pushing yourself, that's definitely forcing. And a lot of times your body will signal this to you. I have paid attention over the years and found that I have a very specific pain in my right foot when I am rushing. And of course, rushing and forcing go hand in hand. So, pushing yourself, rushing, forcing, I will notice in my body a ping in the top of my right foot. It's quite painful. And oh, I'm rushing every time. So, I just want to pass that on because your body is constantly communicating with you. And if you ask your body, what are my signals for XYZ? You will start to notice them. So you can plant that seed. Let this be a spring, planting the seed of noticing more in your body that can signal to you when you are doing something out of alignment. If your energy is draining rapidly with no replenishment, probably forcing through something. And then if there's a sense of wrongness or heaviness or pain in your body, it could absolutely be an indication that you're forcing. So all of the invitation here is to notice, right? To pay attention to what's happening in your body, pay attention to what's happening in your energy, your thoughts, your feelings, and assess what does that feel like when you're in flow versus when you are forcing. And when you notice forcing, pause and ask, is this truly mine to do right now? Because this is an important question. With my house example, is it truly mine to do right now? The answer ends up being yes. I have to take care of these responsibilities. They are a must, they are not an optional. If the question was, is doing the dishes truly mine right to do right now? The answer might have a little bit more flexibility. Well, they don't have to be done right this second. But if I'm completely out of dishes or I have bugs in the sink, it's probably truly mine to do right now. So this question of differentiating, do I actually need to do it right now? Is it truly mine to do right now? These two things, the now and the mine, because sometimes we're also forcing ourselves to do something that's actually someone else's to do. So this is a key question to really, again, if you notice forcing, you notice that resistance, pause. Is this truly mine to do right now? And if you get a no on either half of that, right, then you move on and you don't force it. If you get a, yeah, it is truly mine to do right now, how can you get back towards the flow end of the spectrum and be compassionate with yourself while you do this thing that you clearly don't want to have to do? Because sometimes we do. That's called adulting when we have to do the thing we don't want to do, right? But we do have to do them sometimes. So now I want to talk about the 4 personal seasons, and as I mentioned in the coming episodes, we're going to really like sink into each of the seasons a little bit more as our core topic, but I just want to give this overview. So just like Earth has 4 seasons, your life moves through seasons too. So I am calling these your 4 personal seasons, and they're still just the same season. So spring, summer, fall, winter. So when you are in a personal spring, your energy feels like it's rising. New beginnings are calling you. You're excited to start a new project. You are excited to do that thing that you've always wanted to do. You're planting seeds of intention and possibility. So you're gathering your resources, you're starting to put a little bit of work into things. You are getting going. There's openness to change and to growth because that's the intention is, "Ooh, I'm starting something new. We're planting these seeds. Something new is going to grow." And this is a time of emerging from rest. So your personal spring, I know I'm going to say this again, but I just want to say it here. All of our seasons, all of these personal seasons come and go in different areas of life. So, right now, for me, for example, I'm in a personal spring because I'm emerging from rest with my writing projects. I'm feeling the beginnings of a new book forming. I'm planting the seeds of intention and possibility with the book, but I'm not writing yet. It's not happening. So, I'm not in summer, I'm in spring. So there might be something in your life right now where you're like, ooh. I'm feeling this emerging excitement to start this new project or this new learning or this new whatever. And you're feeling that dormancy beginning to fade. That's what a personal spring looks like. A personal summer is when you are fully expressing something, you're expanding, there's collaboration or visibility, there's abundance at its peak. This is when you are wanting to shine, you're wanting to share your gifts. It's your time to be seen. Your energy is at its fullest. You could say right here, right now, with me doing this live teaching, I'm in a summer because I'm expressing, I'm expanding, I'm collaborating with my audience. I am being seen, I'm sharing, and I am putting some energy in behind it, right? So that's what summer looks like is we are really embodied, we're really expressed, and there is a energy, a higher energy behind it. So if you're in the middle of a project and like you're really expressing yourself in the project, that's a summer. If you are in the middle of collaborating with somebody, you're building something and you're in the actual process of building it, you're in your summer. So think about all of the times that you step in fully embodied to do something that is summer energy. And again, I mentioned society kind of expects us to be in our summer all the time. And that is just not sustainable because the sun can't burn 24/7. It's not how nature intended it. So, our personal autumn is when we're harvesting what we've created. We're expressing our gratitude and we're releasing what didn't serve us. We're preparing for a quieter season and we are in more of an energy of completion and letting go of something rather than being in the full, expression of it. So a personal autumn is like you've just launched something, right? It's out in the world now. And so you're seeing how it lands. So when I publish a book, we go into autumn where, okay, well, now I'm expressing gratitude for the process of creating the book. I'm reflecting on the book. I'm also seeing who's buying the book, who's excited about the book. Your personal autumn, any life lesson, you're going to go into autumn. Anytime you're starting to begin to integrate, you're in the process of having a new awakening or realization, you're going to go into an autumn because you're starting to harvest the lesson. And you're like, I'm maybe grateful for this lesson. I'm starting to release what didn't serve me so that I can prepare for what comes next. And there's a sense of letting go. Like that is autumn when you're really in that contemplation of, okay, wow, I've really learned something and now I'm really chewing on it. And then we take that into our winter, which is where it can actually settle into our bones. But yeah, think about your personal autumn or your personal fall as being the start of the start of the slowdown where you're still in preparation to stop. Sometimes we'll take a sabbatical or we'll take a vacation, and we go through a personal autumn as we prepare for that, right? Because it's like I'm not going to be here. My job's going to be dormant for a while. I need to check off these things to prepare to go into my rest and my vacation. So think of it that way too. Oh yeah, full autumn here. I mean, it is full autumn here, literally in nature, and I'm feeling that preparation for that slowdown. So your personal winter, it looks like a time of rest, restoration, going inward, right? This is where you come to your full stop. You take your breath. You pause. You're not doing much, if anything at all. There's permission to be still, to be introspective, and to dream without action. This is where we integrate, right? So it's like, okay, I don't have to act on this. I just need to install it into the cells of my being and allow it to take form, to sink in. And we want to trust that there's always this dormancy that precedes rebirth. There is it's so necessary to take that pause before we go back into action. And so this is why hustle culture is so damaging because we don't want there to be any dormancy. We don't want to slow down. We don't want to be still. And I know that's when I say we there, that's not true for me, but that is true for dominant society because there's no recuperation time in society. And our personal winter is a sacred time of recuperation and restoration and rest. So your personal winter happens every day, ideally, when you wind down in the evening and you take some time and some moments for yourself. I hope you're doing that. If you're not, let's talk about that because that's my next thing. You might be in different seasons in different areas of life simultaneously, and ideally, you are moving through these personal seasons every single day. So, when we wake up in the morning, we're emerging from our dormancy. So, it's sort of a spring energy, right? And then we get going and we start acting. We've planted some seeds for our day and then we're doing. So we're really in our summer energy. And then by the time, like maybe dinner time, right? It's maybe more of an autumn. We're starting to wind down and we're processing the day. And then there's rest. There's winding down. There's going into dormancy and going to sleep. So, Learn to Be Still by the Eagles. Yes, good theme for this. Um, it's we're supposed to not be on 24/7 and be productive all day. And there is kind of too many expectations these days that we're just constantly productive from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. And I've lived it. I've been it. I've embodied it. I get it. And it's why we're all so burnt out. So what I want to say before we move on from the seasons thing is that you're going to have, if you're in your true rhythm, you're going to have these personal seasons every day, moments of emerging, planting, doing, harvesting, resting, all of that. But also, other projects, other areas of life might be in different seasons at a different time. So there's some multiple layers to play with the metaphor in. And I just invite you to get curious about that. Like these energies and these lessons from nature are here for us for a reason because again, we are the same as the earth. Our cycles are so determined by her. So how to recognize the current season, your personal season that you're in? What's your energy level? Is it rising? Is it at peak? Is it declining? Or are you at rest? Are you craving newness? Are you craving deeper roots and familiarity? Do you feel drawn to connect and share with people, or do you feel drawn to turn inward and reflect? Are you naturally starting new things or are you in the process of completing and releasing? And again, you might be in different seasons with different areas of life. I feel like I'm in spring with this house right now. I feel like I'm in spring with my book right now. I feel like I'm in winter with so many personal areas of development right now, just like integrating and resting in it. I feel like I'm in summer with this course, with some of the activities I'm doing right now, visibility challenge I'm currently in, right? So get curious. What areas are you in your life? What energy level are you contributing to it? How are you showing up? How is it showing up for you? And notice how different things are. This just shows us how cyclical we are. And I've talked about a lot of this, but our culture makes it almost impossible to really honor these seasons. I remember as a CEO, I was like, okay, I'm running my own business. Could I really get away with taking off time for my menstrual cycle? Could I really do that? Because God knows society doesn't matter. Does not matter if you are in crippling pain. You're supposed to show up and be productive. Um, it makes it really hard if we're stuck in the system to honor our body's needs, our emotions, our nervous system's needs. Capitalism demands constant productivity regardless of your energy level, and if you've ever worked a 9 to 5 or been in corporate, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Hustle culture shames rest as laziness. This idea that we should be constantly productive is just so pushed, and I know so many people struggle with this. I have conversations with people all the time who feel guilty for resting or for taking an extra 10 minutes in bed in the morning or calling out of something because of their need for rest. And there's such shame about it. We are expected to produce at the same rate year round, regardless of what our job is, regardless of our energy levels, regardless of what's happening in nature. I will never forget, literally in the middle of a snowstorm, I was told, like, no, you do have to report for work today. Like, you do. And getting stuck on the top of that hill and not being able to budge and having to call out of work and tell them, well, I tried to get there and now I have to be towed in the middle of a snowstorm. Thanks. Like, we don't honor what nature is doing all the time in our culture. And we really need to turn that around. And then last but not least, taking time for introspection is seen as selfish, like self-development work. I don't even know what to say about that. Like, us doing our inner work, taking time and stillness to go within and feel our feelings and all of that is so essential. And yet it's not taught hardly at all. But I want you to remember, if nothing else from today, that you are not a machine and you are far more governed by nature than you are by anything else. So, how do you work with your seasons? Once you recognize that you're in a particular personal season with a project or with an area of life, you can work with it. So, if you're like, okay, I'm emerging, it's time to plant new seeds, try new things, say yes to opportunities, start to put myself out there, make the plans, really like do some of the early work required to get me where I want to go. In summer, it's time to share your gifts. It's time to collaborate with people and let yourself be visible in whatever way that you are visible, right? Everybody has some kind of way that they show up in life. So it could be the summer of reaching out to ask for friendship activities. It could be the summer of starting to really, really do the deep work in that house project you've always wanted to do and sharing about it with your family. Like, there's so many different ways this can show up. In your autumn, acknowledge your accomplishments, celebrate yourself, right? And release what doesn't serve you as you harvest what does. It's a time to practice gratitude. So, again, we should ideally do all of these things each day, but this is a step we skip with our projects. We so often finish the project, and because society demands summer all the time, we go right back to summer. We're like, okay, I published the book, time to write the next book. I finished the task for work, time to start the next task. And there's no moment to like land in, wow, I did that thing. I completed that program. I finished that class. I finished this project in my house. I finished that blog post. And being able to have a moment of like, wow, I'm proud of myself for doing that. I'm grateful I did that. That was important to have done. Good on me, right? And like having that pause before we go back into productivity. But the thing is that we then actually want to go into our winter, right? We want to rest deeply, turn inward, say no to draining demands, and take time to integrate. So, we really, as a society, we plant new seeds all the time and then we do the actions, but we very rarely integrate and pause into rest. So that's the big invitation when working with your seasons is go through all four. Make sure you complete the cycle. Don't stay looping in summer for forever. And I talked about linear time versus cyclical time a little bit, but our culture very much operates on linear time where we're always moving forward and progressing, and the focus is on progression. Past, present, future is in a straight line, and we are ideally going towards the future with more productivity and more, 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 more. Mm, right? That's ugh. Ugh, even saying that, I just feel ugh. Nature operates on cyclical time. The moon, the sun, the stars, the earth herself, all on cyclical time. Days and seasons that repeat in regular intervals. Of course, there's climate change happening, and some of our seasons are shifting and changing. But there are still regular days. The sun rises and sets every day. The seasons are mostly what you expect them to be, and they repeat every year. Moon phases go in a cycle. It goes in that cycle every single time. Every single time. It's you know exactly what to expect one day to the next. But it is a cycle. There's a beginning and an end to it. And then birth, death, and rebirth themes. And I love to use plants for this, right? You plant that seed in the spring and it grows and it grows and it blooms and it bears fruits. And then the fruits bear seeds. And then the plant dies. And then we plant the seeds and the rebirth occurs. And it's so cool. So nature really shows us that birth, death, and rebirth cycle. And this happens all the time in ourselves. You start a new relationship, and the relationship grows and expands and changes, and then it ends. And then you start a new relationship. We start a job. We are in that job for some time, and then we quit, or we're fired, or we realize it's not for us. And then we leave, and there's a death, and we start a new job. There's all kinds of cycles of this life, death, rebirth stuff that happens all the time in our psyche and our emotions, in who we are. We are not linear, and we are not always expanding into more and more and more of what we were. We are changing and growing. And sometimes that looks linear, but more often it's cyclical. So I really, really invite you to play with that. Like, play with how you are more like nature than you are anything else. So daily, weekly, monthly rhythms, beyond the seasonal cycles, you can honor smaller rhythms. You have a daily rhythm where your morning energy differs from your evening energy. And if you can learn to actually honor your natural rhythm throughout the day, instead of being in that hustle productivity mindset where it's like, I have to work 9 to 5, I can't take a break unless it's just for lunch. But then you realize in the afternoon that you're actually a little tired and you do need a break. Like, honor that. That's the work for getting back to our daily rhythms, is figuring out how to layer in more awareness and honoring of what our bodies actually need. Weekly rhythms, you might start to notice when you zoom out that some days feel better for certain types of deep work or connection or rituals that mark transitions. There's no one size fits all with any of this. I have found Monday, for what I don't know if it is that cultural, societal thing about Monday, but I genuinely do a lot of my deeper work and thought based intellectual work on Mondays. By Wednesday, I want to play. My rhythm is like a on, off, on, off, on, off. That's kind of my rhythm. Other people might be like on, off. But however you want to connect in for whatever you need to do. Uh, Notice how you change throughout your weeks. It's quite curious. Monthly, we've got our lunar cycles to pay attention to. If you are a person who menstruates, that can absolutely be an impact monthly that impacts your energy. Like, there's so many different ways to look at this. But how do you establish monthly rhythms? Are there things that you like to do each month? And how does the flow of the month impact you? Does the moon cycle impact you? And then just talking more about the lunar wisdom and cycles, it's been honored across cultures as a guide for inner rhythms for so long. Yeah, on, occasionally off. Got to work on that. Yes, we all do, because it's just expected that we're on all the time. Like, no shame, no, I mean, I will blame society, the patriarchy, I'll blame that. And that's a system we're all upholding together. So we all get to break it together, and that starts inside us. And that's why I really, as long as I can maintain it, try to maintain this sort of on, off rhythm for myself, because otherwise I burn out quick. But in case you are less familiar with how to use the moon, here's just some quick tips. The new moon is a great time for intentions and new beginnings, for kind of like looking at what is new for you at this point in time. The waxing moon, so as it's growing, is for action and building momentum. The full moon is for celebration, releasing, and illuminating. And then the waning moon, as it shrinks again, is for resting, reflection, and letting go. So you can deliberately use those rhythms every moon cycle if you want to pay attention to what's happening in your life. And I practice with the new moon and the full moon because that is enough for me in my current practice. I have a daily moon journal, so I'm kind of paying attention to the phase, but I'm not super conscious about, okay, it's the waxing moon, I'm taking action now. And oh, it's the waning moon, so I'm going to rest more now. It kind of naturally happens, especially when you're touching base with the new moon and the full moon. So just in case anyone does not know, I do currently do a free full moon and new moon ceremony live on YouTube every month, because I know so many of us need these touch points to go, oh, right, another moon cycle has gone by, aka basically another month. What's starting new for me? Like, what are my intentions for the time period ahead? And to have a moment every month where we deliberately release something and celebrate something, like, it's important to have these touch points, I think. But the invitation is to pay attention to how you feel during different moon phases, because it can help you really start to tune into your own cycles. That's the invitation. So let's take a moment here to drop into a time of meditation. And of course, this is exactly when Madam is going to show up to beep at me. Hi, sweetheart. I cannot feed you right now. Um Hopefully she won't beep too much. But we're going to just drop in and pay attention to our cycles. So I invite you to just take a nice breath here in your own way, your own pace. And just begin to notice what's happening in your body right now, as we've talked about these seasons and phases, as we've started to pay attention to the fact that we are cyclical creatures intertwined with Earth's cycles. Just noticing what's here for you as you acknowledge that. And maybe noticing, what is your energy like right now? If you were to put yourself in a season of life right here in this moment, what season is it? Are you in full bloom? Are you planting some seeds, starting something new? Are you harvesting what you've learned? Or are you in dormancy, resting into what comes next? Maybe as you take stock here, you notice different areas of your life that feel like they are full of energy, moving along, and other areas of life that feel stagnant or like they are at rest. And as you notice all this, just bookmarking anything that seems important to you, anything you want to return to, and then gently release any conscious thinking about your seasons as we drop into a moment of connection with the moon. Just noticing, what is your connection to the moon? Do you think about her often? Do you ever look at her? Do you already practice at the new moon and full moon? Is there anything about working with the moon that's calling to you right now? Any lessons that you'd like to take in? Any actions you'd like to move forward with? Now, zooming back from the moon, just to notice the pattern of the sun, how as the earth spins and rotates, we perceive the sun rising and setting every day, consistent, changing slowly over time, over the long seasons, but relatively the same every day. And you are like that too. Just taking a moment to think about all the things, or some of the things, that you do every single day, just like the sun rises. What are you consistent in? What do you show up for each day? Noticing, of course, that every day you breathe You be, you eat, you sleep. And then once again, just taking a bigger zoom out. This time we're zooming out to the solar system or far enough out that we can see the sun, the moon, and the earth together. And acknowledging yourself. You are a teeny tiny little microscopic organism on the surface of the earth from all the way out here. And so seeing how you are impacted by the earth that you live on, by the moon cycling, and by the sun that rises and sets every day. You are a part of this greater cycle, a part of nature. And as you affirm that here, breathe that in, knowing there's so much lesson, so many lessons, so many beautiful experiences for you. The more that you choose to connect in with these natural cycles and remember your nature. And just gently releasing this practice. If your eyes have drifted closed, you can gently blink them open and take some moments to look around your space. Yes, Madam was here the whole time getting pets. Oh, and it's a dangerous game too, because if you don't pet her exactly right, she swipes. So I'm glad my Zen transferred through that. Yeah. So I hope in that little practice we just did that you were able to connect in some way to the way that you are connected to the sun, the moon, the stars, and the earth. We are all a beautiful part of this great cycle of life. And you are a part of planet Earth. You are of Earth. So you are influenced and impacted by all of these things, just as the water flows. So, your practice invitation is to map your personal seasons this week if you'd like to. Maybe map where you're at in your personal seasons in your creative work or your career, your relationships and social life, your physical health and energy, your spiritual practice, your home and living space, just these different areas of life. You might, if you do a wheel of the year, not wheel of the year, of course, I would say wheel of the year. A wheel of life activity where it's like the domains, relationship, career, fun, spiritual, recreational, etc. You could even look at those categories and say, oh, I'm in spring with this and I'm in fall with that. But just identify what season are you in and what does that need from you, right? So if you're emerging with something, you're really in spring, what support do you need? And does that project or domain need from you? And are you honoring where you're at with it, or are you trying to force an outcome? Are you trying to force yourself back into summer? Are you trying to force yourself into winter? Are you trying to force something in between? Just notice, where are you flowing and where are you forcing? Because we all go through both. We have all achieved flow, we have all achieved force. And the more we notice, the more that we are able to directly influence how we show up consciously. And that is really cool. So just notice, play with this metaphor and see if it works for you. It doesn't have to. You don't have to relate to everything as seasons, right? But there is still absolutely wisdom in looking out at the seasons and noticing how we are impacted by that. So whether you choose to shrink the metaphor down to look at your life in a microcosm and how these energies are flowing through your life all the time, you don't have to get that deep, but you absolutely can. And that's half the fun, is we get to feel into how we relate to these natural elements, to these rhythms, and what calls us to really look at and work with. So next time, episode 16 will be the spring and summer life seasons. We'll dive a little bit deeper into the energetics, how we embrace new beginnings, how we plant our seeds, how we harness our expansion, collaboration, and abundance. We will really dive into the energetics of recognizing how we're entering these seasons. We will, of course, talk about practices and connect with the pleasure of new possibilities and full expression. because that's really, spring and summer are very much about those new possibilities and full expression. So thank you all of you who are able to join me live today, those who catch the replay. Thank you again to Amy and Nancy. I just love to really tune into that as we transition in between our various phases. We're on the fourth arc now, which is just really, really cool. So thank you all. I love you all so much. I am just really cheering you on and connecting more and more to planet Earth, to Mama Gaia, to Turan, to this beautiful planet we call home, because there's so much wisdom that's right at our fingertips and underneath the soles of our feet if we choose to tune in. So I see you, I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on. Until next time, my friends, thanks for joining me. Bye for now.